the lore teaches. Origin and purpose of matter. Thus saith the Lord. In the contemplation of the spiritual part of the earth, in order to instruct ourselves thoroughly, we will make a retrograde movement, and will not rise from the depth to the height, but from the height to the depth, which is quite in order, because one must not turn from the inside to the outside, but from the outside to the inside, in order to reach the really spiritual, which is the deepest and the innermost in everything. It has already been shown to you too often that within the material there is always spiritual hidden, and how the actually visible matter in and for itself is basically nothing else than caught, bound, and fixed spiritual. Nevertheless, for a more thorough knowledge of it, some explanations shall follow here as well. You can look at whatever matter. You will still not find that it only appears as completely solid. But every matter is divisible, because it consists of parts. And between these parts, there are still little spaces, which are called pores by the experts of nature. No scholar is yet clear about the division of matter, and no one can determine into which finitely smallest parts matter is divisible. Take, for example, a granule of musk, and place it in a large chamber. In a short time, all the rooms of the large chamber will be filled with the scent of musk, and one may leave such a small piece laying around for many years, and it will not lose anything noticeable, neither in its volume nor in its weight. And yet in every second, many millions of particles must have fleetingly detached themselves from this small piece, in order to continuously fill the wide rooms of the chamber with the scent of musk. A great number of similar examples could still be cited. Only this single one is sufficient for our matter, in order to understand that it certainly has its ways, i.e. its doubts, with some definite, final determination about the finite divisibility of matter. But if now it is shown that at least for your terms, all matter is divisible up to a near infinite minimum, then it is more than clear, on the other hand, that the matter must be necessarily composed of parts. But who pulls these parts together and sticks them so firmly to each other that they finally look like a simple mass, which is sometimes more, sometimes less firm? Behold, there is already the first level from which the spiritual begins. These endlessly small parts are originally nothing but merely a power of ideas from me, the creator of all things. This power of ideas gets form, and the form gets life from the life of the creator. The creator releases the newly animated form from himself, gives it its own light from his own original light, and with this light, which is alive, its own intelligence, through which the newly animated form recognizes itself and becomes aware of itself as an independent being. When the form has thus recognized itself, the order, a law of all being, is given to it, and with this order the innermost fire of the divinity, a spark of the eternal love from which the will emerges. Now the newly revived form has light, self-knowledge, self-consciousness, the order and the will, and can arrange its will according to the order, or also act against this order. So, if a new creature acts and moves according to the order, then it will be strengthened like a tree and will appear as a perfect, free being in the great space of creation for eternal continuance, because all its being is created from me, who surely am and will be eternally. And therefore man is a creature, because all his being is drawn from me, and his lot can be no other than my own, because his is drawn from me. As if someone draws water from the well, the water in the vessel is equal to the water in the well, and has the same destination as the groundwater in the well, from which it was drawn. But if such a new being or creature with its free will does not follow the given order, then it naturally goes towards its downfall, or its dissolution, which can be easily grasped quite naturally. If someone puts a plant in the ground, but does not allow it moisture, sunlight and warmth, what will happen to the plant? But let us assume that the plant had free consciousness and could take water, light and warmth, but it did not want to. What will become of it? It will wither and perish. Or someone wanted to be portrayed by a painter in a completely similar way, but never wants to turn his face to the painter. What kind of image will that become in the end? But it cannot be indifferent to me, the creator, whether a being which was not only formed by me like an image in the idea, but was created in the above-mentioned way from the fullness of my divine substance, exists only for a time or eternally. The first, existing only for a time, would obviously have to be able to destroy a part out of me, which is impossible. Therefore it can, if it is once created, only be created for eternities. But such a creature can pervert itself in my order, and that is just as much as to cease to exist for me in a certain way. For he who is not for me is against me. In this way, however, an opposing force and power potency would form next to me in the course of time, which would oppose my free working, which, in other words, would mean nothing else than I, the very highest perfection, would have to be imperfect myself in order to tolerate an imperfection next to me. In order to control this highest evil, a creature which does not want to conform to my given order is immediately captured and is fixed to a point and to a place. And behold, this fixation is what you know, see, and feel as matter. In the endless many particles of matter lies the endless intelligence of the newly created, but now imprisoned being. And that intelligence can never perish, but it is bound and turned against the Son of the Spirit for so long until it has reached that maturity, like a mirror, which absorbs the light of the sun until the sun turns it back and makes it blind for everything else. So it is in the end only capable of receiving the light of the sun. On the outside, of course, the mirror becomes duller and duller, and fine matter becomes looser and more porous. But this matter becomes more and more capable of absorbing the image of the sun into all its dissolved parts, even if highly rejuvenated. And this is actually the good transition, that such a being begins to receive the divinity in all its parts, and not only in one single part. And so it is not enough for someone to say, "Lord, Lord." Rather, he must have absorbed the Lord in all his vital fibers. Only then is he ripe to return to whence he came. For this reason, all matter must finally be dissolved again into the minutissimum, the smallest, so that there is no particle left which would not be able to receive the image of the eternal Sun. And in this reception of the eternal archetype is then again the new creation, in which the endless intelligences of a being, which were imprisoned before, but now became free again, seize each other again, go back into the first archetype, and become again what they should have become already in the primal beginning. From this introduction, it will surely be clear to you that in matter there cannot possibly be anything other than merely spiritual. And we can now make our wanderings over and into the spiritual earth on well-lighted paths.